Hi my loves, welcome to the channel Style by C. Today's tutorial will be on how to recreate this beautiful false wrapper gown with yoke and stylish sleeve. Do subscribe to the channel, share to friends. The next thing we're going to do is to transfer this our pattern paper to our fabric. So first thing first before then is I'm going to measure what I have here. This is my bust line. I'm going to measure what I have from this point to here. I have roughly 4 inches. Okay, now I'm going to do this for the side. I'm also going to measure for the center, and I have 3 inches for the center. So while transferring this to my fabric, I'm going to make sure that this side is up to 1 inch. All right, so that when I join the two fabrics together, I'm not going to be having a shortage. All right, so that is what we are going to do. So we're going to transfer these pattern papers to our fabric. Now, to cut this out now, what first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to place my tape at my 4 inches. We had 4 inches for the other side, that is the side piece. So I place it on my bust line, which is here, and I'm going to mark wherever it stops. Okay, from 4 inches upwards. So this is where it is. All right, so from this point now, I'm going to be connecting to this area. Okay, so let's say roughly we have at this point we have half an inch, then this side 1 inch. All right, so now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be adding half an inch to the side. Okay, this is for my stitching allowance. Please note it's for your stitching allowance. So this is what I have. I'm going to go ahead now to cut this piece out. Okay, this is what it looks like. Is my front piece. Okay, this is my 2 front piece. I went ahead to cut out 2 pieces for my front. That is the skirt part of my gown. We're going to be having 2 pieces for it. Okay, one is going to be an overlap and one is going to be the main fabric. Now this is my waist area here. All right, and this is the side I'm going to be having the slits that is going to be overlapping to the other side. So first thing first I'm going to do is I'm going to mark my waistline. Okay, so the waistline I'm working with is 7.5 inches. So I'm going to mark it. For your skirt piece, how I cut my skirt is just the usual way we do our skirt cutting. So this is my waist measurements. Looking at the thumbnail we have there, the overlap had a rope, okay, or a strap, but it did not end, like the overlap did not start, it did not end with the main skirt piece. All right, so what I'm going to do is now is from this waist line I have, I'm going to go in by 2.5 inches, and this is what I have here. This is my 2.5 inches. Now we're going to be having joining and not the rest of them, so I'm going to use 2 inches. Okay, so as after joining, stitching, I'm going to be left with 2. I'm going, the round number of what I use is still going to be 2.5 inches. So we're working with 2 inches. Now we're going to be connecting this to the bottom of our skirts. So we're also going to go to the bottom of our skirts and get the midpoint of the skirts first. So I'm placing my tape here. I have 21 inches at the base of the skirts. I'm going to get the midpoint, and this is the midpoint of my skirts. All right, so this will help me to determine how my slant is going to kick off from. So from here now, I just want to make an imaginary line first. So you can decide to keep your slit at the center piece, like the slant. You can decide to keep it at the middle of your dress. You can decide to keep it maybe a few inches, depending on how you want yours to be. So for this, I'm going to mark 1 inch or 1.5 inches away from the center piece, that is this side. If you watch close what I'm doing. Now from here now, I'm going to be connecting to this area. And this is what I have. Now the next thing I'm going ahead to do now is to cut this piece out. Please note that you're not cutting the two of them together, you're just cutting out the overlap. You're not cutting the main fabric of your skirt. So I'm going to keep this aside. So this is what we have for our overlap. All right, so now go ahead and cut out a lining piece for the main skirt pieces, not the overlap. I'm not lining my overlap. Okay, so we're going ahead to cut out now is our sleeve. Determine how long you want your sleeve to be. So I'm going to be working with 12 inches, 11 inches for my sleeve. It's not going to be a really long sleeve because I'm turning it out with a lining piece. So this is my 11 inches. I'm going to mark it here. Okay, now I'm going to add in about 2 inches or 1.5 inches at the top because I want to have that kind of a pop. That is okay. If you want to have, I don't want to have. This is my sleeve. I have 11 inches for my sleeve. I'm going to be turning it out to lining. That's why I used 11 inches. That is 1 inch. My sleeve is 10 inches plus 1 inch seam allowance or stitching allowance. Now from this tip of my sleeve, I'm going to go down to 4 inches. The 4 inches is my biceps line or cap height. So at this point now, I'm going to insert my bust measurement plus each seam allowance. I'm using 1.5 inches for this. Then here I'm going to mark my measurements, my elbow measurements, or where your sleeve stops. So for mine, I have 5.5 inches. But for this tutorial, the sleeve is free. It's not like a tight sleeve. So I'm going to add extra 1 inches for ease. Okay, plus my stitching allowance. So this is what I have for my sleeve. Now we're going to be working on this upper area. If you look closely, we have kind of that illusion puff, but not really a puffy sleeve. Okay, so from the tip, I'm going up by 1 inch. Now from here, I'm going to create the look of a sleeve. All right, and this is what I have. Now I'm going to go ahead to cut this piece out. And this is what we have. Okay, so we're using this to cut out another piece for our sleeve. Then we're going to create that curve or that shape we have on our sleeve part. All right, so let's cut out another part quickly, then we'll work on that one. For our sleeve now, we're going to be creating that curve we have on the center piece of our sleeve. So this is my center area. What I have to do is either you go up by 2.5 inches or 2 inches. So for this, I'm working with 2.5 inches, and this is where I have it here. All right, now I'm going to mark the width of, that is how bold I want the curve to be or the shape to be. So I'm going to be working with 1.5 inches, and this is it here. I'll go ahead and create the curvy look. But if you think, okay, it's not going to work out, you can decide to maybe use extra, let's say an extra of 2 inches or more, depending on how deep you want yours to be. So first thing first is I'm going to cut out one. Let's see how it is before we proceed to cutting out another one. And this is what it looks like. All right, so guys, this is my bustier pieces. The next thing I'm going ahead to do now is to join these bustier pieces together. I'll be starting off with the down, this one. Keep this aside. So now I'll go ahead and run a stitch on it all the way to this side. In these pieces together, I also went ahead and joined my lining pieces together too. Okay, now we're going to work on the yoke parts. We're going to be attaching to our bustier. At this point now, I went ahead to cut out my yoke piece, and this is what we have. Then I went ahead to run a stitch on it. Then I'm going to trim off the excesses that I have. Then the next step is to top stitch on it. So loves, at this point now, I've gone ahead to turn it out. Now I'm going to run a top stitch closely to what we sewed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead to run the stitches now. So loves, this is my tool and this is my dress. Okay, so now I'm going to be attaching it here. So all I have to do is to place it center to center. going to hold it down with a pin. Also go ahead and run a stitch on this other side, okay? So as after turning it out, this is what I have. To be joining the bottom part of my gown, okay, the bustier area here and the bottom part of the gown together. So loves, the next thing we're cutting out now is the tulle that is going to be on the skirt part of our gown. Okay, so I'm going to be working with 5 inches because it's going to be on a fold. Okay, and this is where my 5 inches lies. Validation. I'm gonna try. Validation. Validation. So this is it. Actually very long. So what I have to do now is I'm going to fold it in this way. Okay, on a fold of 2. Then I'm going to pleat it while attaching it to my dress. All right, so keep this aside. Now this is my skirt, the skirt part of my gown. That is the overlap, the illusion wrapper overlap we have. Okay, so I place the fabric on top of it. Now I want to cut out what I'm going to use as a facing, okay, or a bias for it. So that's what I'm going ahead to cut out, and it's 2 inches. It's going to be 2 inches wide. So I'll go ahead to cut this out. So okay, so this is it. I'm going to be introducing my tulle, and this is our tulle. Let's take for instance, this is the bottom part. First thing first I did was to hem the down part of it. I should have left it and hemmed it together with this. Okay, so if it is yolks, please ensure that you do not run a stitch on the down part before. Attach the strap or the facing to your skirt part, to this overlap before closing up the down. So now I'm going to place my tulle in between these 2 pieces, and this is my tulle. All right, so what I have to do now is I'm going to pleat my tulle on this. And this is going to come on top of it. Let's use a pin to secure it down. Alright, so I'll go ahead to keep pleating. When I'm done running the first stitch, this is what I have. I turned it out, and this is what it looks like, and this is what the inside looks like. Now I'm going to be running a second stitch to hold these pieces together. All right. So we'll go ahead and run the stitch together to hold this down. Now the next thing you have to measure now is you're going to measure what we have on this area. Okay, so note, first thing first is we're going to be joining this to our skirt parts. All right, so I'm going to mark the shape allowance that is here, which is 2 inches. From the center, or from the center, you mark your waist measurement. Okay, and this is where mine is. All right, now from here now, I'm going to measure what I have here. I have 14.5 inches. All right, so this 14.5 inches, I'm going to be adding extra inches, that is for the rope that I'm going to tie. But make sure that here is 14.5 inches. Take the measurements from here to here, then add extra rope for your tie. So loves, this is for my strap. I went ahead to cut out a band that is very long. Okay, it will fit into my waist area. Go ahead and measure what you have on your waist area, or what you have, yes, on your waist area of your wrap around or your false wrapper. Okay, so that's what I went ahead to do. I'm using 5 inches board. On a fold is 2.5 inches, but at this point I think it's too wide. I'm going to reduce it while sewing. Okay, while stitching on it. So this is what I have. I placed it on my waist area. Okay, now from here now, where our false wrapper stops, I made a mark, okay, to enable me close up this area, because this is where we're going to be wrapping, tying with this the other end. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run a stitch from here, close this up area. This side is going to be open because we're going to be joining it, so we're going to be stitching on it. Okay, so this is what I have after running a stitch on it, and I trimmed off the excesses. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this piece out. And this is what we have. This is what we have. Okay, so now we're going to be placing this on top of this fabric, this way, on top of the wrap. All right, so I'm going to run a stitch on it, after which I will fold it in. I'll run a stitch on it, then fold it in this way. Okay, so first thing first is I'm going to run a stitch on it first. So guys, I'm going to be talking on how to control your zip budge at this point. Okay, so this is your back piece. So from it, I'm going to go up by 1/2 inch. I'll mark 1/2 inch here. So from this 1/2 inch, I'm going to be connecting to my waistline in a slant form. This is to control your zip budge. Okay, so go ahead and join these pieces to your skirt parts for my dart. Okay, so all I have to do is from this point now, I will have 1.25 inches for my zip. Then from here, I mark my dart leg, which is 4 inches, 4 inches. Okay, so go ahead and run a stitch on this point. So after I'm done, all I did was, this is what I have. Okay, I'm not folding anything again. I'm going to go ahead and interlock it. Use an interlock machine to interlock it or weave it, the edges. Okay, so now the next thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to be joining my 2 shoulders together. That is the back shoulder and the front shoulders together. Okay, after I'm done, I'll shape my dress. So now the next thing is joining of our shoulders. Okay, so I'm going to be imputing these 2, that is the front shoulder, into my back shoulder. Okay, so what I have to do is open up the lining and the main fabric, the Ankara piece, and I'm going to place the two in between these two pieces this way, and I'm going to go ahead and run a stitch on them. Okay, so when you're done, this is what it will look like. This is the outer part, and this is what the inner will look like. So you do this to the other side of your shoulder. So now the next thing we're going to go ahead to do now is to join our sleeve to the shoulder area, to the armhole area of our dress. So this is our sleeve. I went ahead to turn it out with a lining piece, and this is what I have. Okay, so now I'm going to attach it on the shoulder part of the dress. I'm going to go ahead to attach this.